On tonight's Empire Report, a shocking vid has come out of the Corel system. In it, a prisoner on Low is seen being beaten by police. Who took the vid? And how did it get out? The victim's family and Low officials both want to know.
Can people be too happy? That seems to be the question Crusader Industries is asking with the introduction of luxury liners equipped with the new exuberant respiration systems. We talked to our very own Gillian Spratt to learn what it was like to be one of the first passengers on board.
With Terra's Settlement Day festival shaping up to be the event of the year, we are looking at some major traffic hitting the entire system. We'll take a look at which jump points will be hit the hardest and what you can do to be prepared.
All that and more on the next Empire Report at 2200 SET.
This video made possible by the ICC Stellar Surveyors and subscribers like you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 62 of Around the Verse. I'm Sandy Gardner.
And I'm Ben Lesnick.
The Avenger is on free fly right now, so all you guys, backers out there, should get in there and try it out.
Yep, the folks at Foundry 42 are working on the Avenger revamp right now, including the two-seat variant and the various combat variants. You'll be hearing more about that in the near future, but your feedback on the current Fly Free is a big help to them.
Work on Star Citizen is continuing along. The team is currently putting 1.2.1 through its paces for an impending release.
1.2.1 will include a number of balance changes, some of them long-awaited, as well as the initial updates to the social module. So our corp might get a little bit more interesting. We'll have more details on that soon. We'll be going to PTU in the near future, no date yet, but it's coming.
And of course, we're looking forward to CitizenCon. Tickets will be printable 1 week beforehand. There will be 200 lucky people to take a tour in the Concorde, and there will be all sorts of other goodies and swag on the night, so we look forward to that.
That's a great chance to meet the folks in the UK who don't get as much coverage since they're far away from our cameras.
We held our first subscriber-only live stream on Wednesday, and it went really well.
Yes, Chairman Roberts stopped by to answer some questions. We're going to try to do this essentially once a month, give a little bit back to the subscribers who make shows like this possible. It won't always be Chris. We'll have other special guests, so look forward to that. We take all the questions directly from the subscriber chat, so if you'd like to take part in the next one, subscribe.
Yes, and for those of you who may have missed out on the Wall of Honor, here it is.
That is one heck of a wall of honor.
It is. People have been asking about it for a while, and it was hiding in our office next door, so it's nice to see that everybody gets to see it.
And we're going to have that posted in the new office for all of our visitors to see.
We will. So now let's kick it over to news from around the verse. Reeling it in?
Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome back to sunny Southern California. I am Darren Vorlick, production coordinator at Cloud Imperium Games in Santa Monica, with this week's update. On the production and design and engineering side, the first we've got is one of our designers, our senior designer, Kirk Tomei. He is working on the gray boxing of the Drake Herald ship. It's coming out to be really cool, and it's looking to be a test bed of some of our component features. On top of that, we've got Calix Renault and Matt Sherman. We've got two different entries from them today. Both are working on balancing for the 1.3.0 patch coming up pretty soon. So we've got feedback that we've been soliciting from the players on top of doing internal playtesting and balancing. But the last part of this is Calix Renault has been working on a couple of new weapons. One of them is a mass driver, and the other one is, I believe, a ballistic cannon of sorts. One's a size 2, one's a size 4. So we've been doing some internal balancing for that. And on top of that, we're hopeful to see them in our PTU in the near future. Other than that, that's what we got from Southern California. I'm Darian Vorlick.
Hey guys, Jake Ross here, Associate Producer of the Persistent Universe, and I'm here with you this week to talk a little bit about Social Module V1. We're coming up here on our milestone deadline, so it's exciting to see things kind of come together for our next iteration of Area 18 and Social Module. Part of that, we've got working on some props to help flesh out the area a little bit, some hero props. We've got our second section of ArcCorp opening up. And it's going to be kind of like this construction zone, and it has this giant, huge crane prop overlooking the whole area. So Patrick Thomas, our lead environment artist here, personally took that on himself, and it looks really great. So hopefully that'll get in, and you guys will get a taste of that. We're also working on the Million Mile High Club, which is, for those who don't know, goes to our first 100 backers who gave us 10K. So that's kind of a private lounge just for them. So it's a kind of a cool little bonus environment we got going, and we're making some props, some hero props for that as well. We're also working on this prop for the character loadout selector. So in the next release, you guys will be able to kind of pick between different loadouts using an actual interface instead of just pressing F6. So we want it to be in fiction. So we have this kind of prop that we're making just for that interface. So look forward to that. We've also been working on the female locomotion set. So we've got our male animations in and working. We've got some emotes going there, and so we're refining now our female. So hopefully we'll be able to see her walking around in game here pretty soon as well. So we've got all the male emotes in. We're working on the female ones next. So hopefully that'll be soon. Last but not least, we're working on the Hurston White Box, the Lorville landing zone in the Hurston, on the Hurston planet in the Stanton system is one of our upcoming landing zones, and we are in white box phase there. So we're going back and forth, iterating and with Tony, and it's this kind of refinery world. There's lots of coal and ash. It's really dirty, and it's gonna be cool. A little, way different than ArcCorp is. So we'll get some variety there. So yeah, it's in white box phase, so hopefully you guys will get to see that here later on down the line. All right, that's all I got for you this week. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Hi, I'm Ross Tregenza.
And I'm Darren Lambourne, and we are sound designers in the audio department here in Foundry 42 UK. Little background, I've been in the industry around 25 years now. This will be about my 60th title. It's certainly the largest, most expansive, demanding title of my life. I'm working right now on what we're calling Ship Audio 2.0, which is all about really expanding the complexity of and the voice of each individual spaceship, giving them all a signature sound, such like the resonances, sympathetic resonances you hear from the physicality of the ship responding to various forces applied to it. And and the power plant and the various systems and how they're all organically connected. And that's what I'm doing at the moment anyway. And it's cool.
Yeah, I've come from an FPS background. I started as composer on the games Time Splitters 2 and Time Splitters 3. Then went on to make Aliens vs Predator, and then onto the Crisis titles, porting Crisis 1 for the consoles, then onto sound design, music, and a bit of writing and directing on Crisis 2 and Crisis 3. And then finally Homefront The Revolution with Dan Buster, which was a more open-ended game. And this game being so open-ended is really what's made me excited about it. I mean, it's massive. There's never been a game as open-ended as an entire universe. It's a very exciting prospect to work on. I'm working on ambient sound design at the moment, mostly just giving spaces a lot of life, making it feel if one area is desolate and cold, the other area is exciting and vibrant, just making you want to traverse that kind of sonic space. Also lending just some of my FPS backgrounds on readability, just making it a pleasant experience when you're going around in any kind of first-person adventure. And yeah, that's me.
We'll see you later.
Hey guys, Brian from the Frankfurt office here, flying solo this week. Give you an overview of what some of the guys have been working on this week out of the office. On the engine side, we got a prototype up and running for procedural planet generation. The guys tried numerous approaches. We've settled on one we think is the best, the most efficient. We're seeing some really cool results from going really far out to really close in. The players will have that seamlessly, which is pretty cool. So making progress there. As far as on the animation, we did a good amount of work on Ragdoll. So we now have going in and out of Ragdoll to animation and every variation and combination in between. Also procedural hit reactions and driven Ragdolls. A lot of that adds those little details. If we have for those procedural hit reactions, now you're going to see less repetition as you're going through. It's going to be based off of the trajectory and velocity and so on that the players get hit. The things like that help the player feel a little bit more immersed in the world. FPS, they're working on a new gameplay mode right now. Can't really give much details away, otherwise I'd give too much away probably. Cinematics, they're making really good progress. As I said, probably every week. It's going to be a treat at CitizenCon. We'll kind of show, a snapshot of where we're at, and you'll be able to see the quality and where we're pushing things. Weapons, we are working on a couple new ship weapons that everyone should be able to see shortly. And on the engine side, we've also integrated some of the latest CryEngine animation tools, which will, it's got new attachment features, allows for faster setup, new debugging and workflow, and ultimately will make things a bit more efficient. So short and sweet, to the point. Talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Big thank you to our studios from around the world.
James had a chance to talk to our CG supervisor, Forrest Stephan.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with CG supervisor Forrest Stephan. Forrest, good to have you back, man.
Hey,
it's been a while. You're our first repeat interview. Are you stoked?
I am. I'm super excited.
You look pretty stoked.
Excited.
All right,
what
man.
To talk about?
Well, since you were here, you actually got a promotion. Why don't you tell everybody what you're doing now?
Well, it's the same thing.
Same thing?
Yeah. Do CG supervisor, I don't know, a lot of the same stuff, right? Make sure that all the tech's working, make sure that the artists have all the tools that they need to make the awesome stuff that we get to see every day and play every day. Make sure that the tech is as efficient as possible, because that's kind of been a big part of it, is making sure the game runs well and all that stuff. But to make sure that, in this case, we're working on characters, and so we're trying to, we got a big CitizenCon demo coming up, and it's going to start having some characters in it. So we're putting a lot of effort to make sure that they look extra sweet, right?
Nice. So how are the characters looking? I know you've kind of taken over that pipeline, trying to get it ready.
They're looking amazing.
Because you took it over?
No. It's a team effort. Actually, I've been really lucky. I've had Omar, who you guys have met a couple times, and he's been helping a lot. And then Ali, also obviously our graphics director, has helped. Kind of define the initial steps to go forward with the character pipeline, and then Oka actually has written the shader and all the tech that is kind of required for the new characters. So I'm very excited about the new characters, because we've done ships, we've done environments, and we hadn't done characters yet. I mean, we did some, but they were more like test cases and stuff. And so actually for CitizenCon will be the first time that we kind of show off our new characters.
Yeah, it was almost like in the beginning or previously, everything was focused on ships.
Yeah.
So we're character models, but they weren't the finished or what we expect the finished product to look like.
That's right. So everything that we do, every discipline, we tend to take a stab at it, we see where we're at, and then we build the tech that we actually want to drive the game for the next 5 years or whatever, right? And so in the case of the ships, you guys saw the damage tech, right? We did a lot of efficiency things where we start using tiling textures and all this stuff, right? And then make them more and more modular. For environments, we use the whole modular systems. Everyone saw it first with the hangars. They build out, it modularly builds out, and now all of our levels are this kind of modular structure, and then use a lot of the same shader and tiling texture techniques that we did and we learned from with the ships. The VFX, we try to take that to the next level, and instead of using just standard billboards and stuff, we started pushing more and more and more and more, and started getting very nice looking volumes and these 3D shapes, and we've kind of pushed the explosions and just like getting that not less 2D feel and more 3D cinematic feel. And now it's the characters' turn, and that's what we've been working on like the last 5 months and stuff like that, to make sure that the characters live up to the standards of the rest of the game. But obviously with the persistent universe, customizing your character is super important.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure that all characters, whether it's Squadron 42, persistent universe, characters in Arena Commander, the overall quality of the characters are very kind of high AAA standard and efficient, right? So kind of what we did was we took the approach of going with the tiling textures as we did for the ships and the environments, and basically it kind of allowed us to create this very high quality textile density. So when you get right up close to the character, you kind of have that nice, that good jean, that good fabric look, and it doesn't really break down with this like blurry low res textures that you would normally be required for an MMO. And then all of our textures, are basically these small like 256 textures. And then we have these color maps that allow us to break up where the different materials happen. And it's starting to become more and more common technique. I think more and more games will do it, but games have done it, like the Infiltrator did it in their demo, but we actually do it real time in a game environment that actually gets the frame rates required to do it in an MMO environment. And then so we're able to create our color mass and create like our pristine materials, and then we create all our worn materials, and then we're able to kind of blend in between them also with wear masks and dirt masks and stuff like that.
So what characters are you currently working on right now?
Currently working on characters that are going to be in the CitizenCon. So I can't give away who's going to be in CitizenCon, what characters are going to be in CitizenCon. It's going to be very exciting. Very exciting.
There's a salesman in you.
Yes, it's going to be great. But, been working on it for a while now, and a lot of other people have been working on it for a lot of other people have been putting a lot of effort forth to make this demo pretty spectacular, and it's starting to shape up. So, that's why it's kind of exciting. You kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're just kind of cruising into the end now. And, but so probably, kind of what kind of like to show and kind of what I've already been seeing is the deck crew and the BDU. So obviously that's a big role in the Star Citizen universe for Squadron 42 and for the storyline. So yeah, and the basically it allowed us to take these two characters that we're going to have in CitizenCon and really flesh out this tech with them. And it also allows us to do what we call like the item port system, which allows us to swap out different elements of the character. So the way that the characters actually work now that we've kind of all figured out and wrote in the tech is, you got a hand, and then you kind of got a 3/4 or a kind of half, right, for rolled up sleeves.
Almost up to the elbow or something?
Yeah, up to the elbow for like rolled up sleeves, so like a half, and then you have the 3/4, which is like the t-shirt, and then you have like the tank top, which goes here, so you have this, long arm, right? And then it kind of swaps in and out depending on what kind of clothing you're wearing, right, to make it efficient. You're not rendering on top of other stuff. And then, legs, same thing. You got your feet, then you got your legs. So you can have shorts, short shorts. You could have longer shorts, right? Pants, and you can swap all this stuff out, right? And, different type of t-shirts, different type of pants. Torso separated from the legs. The arms are separated from the torso. The head separated from the torso. The hats are separated from the heads. Shoes, so you can swap your shoes in and out, swap your hats in and out, swap your helmets in and out. And then obviously being able to have these materials that drive each of those elements all separated allows us to do like complete customization. And then also, because we kind of have this new tech, a lot of our color information that comes into the textures isn't baked all down into the texture maps.
Okay.
So what that does is it allows us to do massive color variations for persistent universe customization. And also it's required for a lot of our game design. Like the deck crew, for example, has multiple variants that all have their specific job roles, and so each one, kind of like a real deck crew in real life, has a different color code, per one, right? And instead of having to build all these textures and just like get massively expensive, it allows us to use some more code-driven techniques to actually change the colors of these characters, and then that falls in line with like during the persistent universe. If you want to, you have a T-shirt, there's going to be different colors of the T-shirt, and then obviously dresses, shorts, pants, jackets, vests, and what other crazy costumes that we'll come up with for these futuristic characters.
Yeah, I'm personally very excited to see characters. I mean, we've had ships for a long time. The ships are awesome, but making the verse feel like home, I think you need to have characters and character models out there so we can really feel like a huge world. And I'm really excited, and you guys have been doing some crazy work up there.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah, we put a lot of effort. We worked with Trilateral, and we have some great guys in the UK, Manit, John Jones, Andy, Tilsey. That's all been kind of really concentrating on making sure that our heads are coming in, because we scanned 120 heads. And then it goes to Sean Tracy in Austin. He's been doing an amazing job getting those all set up and stuff. And there's this huge teamwork. And I've been kind of concentrating on bodies and jumping on heads here and there, and kind of concentrating on the tech as well. So we're all kind of trying to steer it away, keep it all together and like keep it in and keep that visual quality up. So to be able to see some real characters with personality and some acting and some life, finally is just going to be really. It's going to be the first time that you're going to really feel the power of kind of the story of Star Citizen and the power of the story of Squadron 42, and it's going to, I think, transition from just this environment that you're playing in, but you're not really know what you're playing in. Yeah. And this will be the first time that you start kind of getting, that kind of feeling that, I'm in something, and I'm a part of something.
You see the bigger picture.
And there is a lore, and we've read the lore, but now we actually get to start feeling it and getting the emotion from it and all that stuff.
Yeah, man, well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Pleasure having you again. Go ahead, show me your hair, though.
What?
Show my hair.
I cut it off?
Yeah.
Bro, I cut it all off.
Back to you guys.
Thank you, James and Forrest.
Thanks, James and Forrest.
Thanks, James and Forrest.
Thank you.
Thanks. I don't know what's happening here. We want to feel very old. This Saturday is the 25th anniversary of the release of the original Wingcommander.
Here's the chairman himself to talk a little bit about its legacy.
Thank you very much, Sandy. I am sitting here with, man everyone already knows, Chairman Roberts. And we are celebrating 25 years of the original Wingcommander. Did you ever think that you would still be making space games 25 years?
I'm not sure I thought about it. I mean, when you're like 21, 22, you sort of don't think about what you'd be doing when you're in your 40s. I mean, I certainly know that I love making games and I love space, so I don't think I was thinking of not making games. I'm not sure I was thinking that I'd make as many of the Wingcommanders and do as much space stuff as I did, because I actually liked fantasy and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. But so no, I wasn't. I was just sort of in the moment making Wingcommander at the time.
Where did the idea come from? What was the genesis of Wingcommander?
Well, I think I've talked about this a lot. I mean, I think most of the people that have backed Star Citizen are science fiction fans. So I mean, I grew up. I was a big science fiction fan. Obviously, I said that Star Wars was a big. I was 8 years old. I saw the first episode 4, and my father took me and my brother to go see it, and it was just like, wow, that was a world that. First time I was like, okay, I believe that world. I can, we went home, built like X-Wing and TIE fighters out of Lego before Lego had X-Wing and TIE fighters. And I loved science fiction, just in general as a genre. I read, massive amounts of books, whether it's from Heinlein to Asimov to Ursula K. Le Guin. Joe Heidelman's The Forever War was actually one of the inspirations of, part of like the idea of Wingcommander, which was sort of this war that was sort of, a big ongoing war that never seemed to end. I just always wanted to create an experience on a game that put me in a universe or a world the same way when I first saw Star Wars. And so that was one of the bigger inspirations. I mean, I also was a big military history fan, so World War II was a big area of interest. I think it is for a lot of boys growing up in England, so I was kind of fascinated by the war in the Pacific, and so that was sort of the model, which was the Kilrathi, were the Imperial Japanese Navy, and the Confederation was the U.S. sort of Navy and Marines. So that was so I took some historical backdrop and combined it with sort of this science fiction setup and universe to create this kind of ongoing, war in the future, and against the backdrop of dashing space pilots. So things like Top Gun and all that are all obviously other parts of inspiration of that time. I was Top Gun came out a few years before Wingcommander, and that was one of the, I was first over in America, and I was working with Times of Lore, and that was yet another kind of pretty cheesy now, but back then it was pretty cool movie that was all sort of an inspiration for kind of the pistachio elements that sort of made Wingcommander.
So how did you sell this game to Origin? Because everything they did before was much smaller scale. It was very role-playing oriented, and this, to those of us on the outside, it seemed to come out of nowhere.
Well, it was different. I mean, the first game I worked on at Origin was Times of Lore, which was more sort of fantasy, role-playing. It was kind of this top-down. It was a top-down game that had sort of the look of Gauntlet, but you could talk to people and you had sort of conversation branches and trees, which was actually one of the first times you saw that in an interface that way in a computer game with icons and stuff. Because I sort of wanted to take the Gauntlet style of gameplay, but make something that had a story and was deeper, which is sort of a common theme. And then I was just I'd gotten Times of Lore out, which was well reviewed and it did well, but it didn't do as well as I would hope it was going to do. And partly it was because I made a game for the Commodore 64 and built it to fit inside the memory and load, because in the UK people didn't have hard drives, so you had to load off tape, so you couldn't just go back to the hard drive to bring in new data. And so I made it all, did a bunch of technical tricks to make the resolution appear higher than it was and compress and fit all the data. And so I was quite proud of the technical tricks, but they, people over in America with Commodore 64s, it's floppy drives, were like, because they're just putting in floppy drives, streaming in whatever data fairly, not now, but back then it seemed like it was pretty quick. So I sort of felt like at that point I was playing around with, I wanted to do a science fiction game, because that was, one of my big loves. And back in the old Origin days, I wasn't an employee, so Origin, this is before EA bought us, Origin, even including Richard was treated as a developer that was published through Origin. And so that's what happened with Times of Lore, and they would advance you some money that you could spend on your game or hiring someone to work on your game. But you had a publishing contract, you weren't an employee with them. And so I had an office in Origin, but I wasn't an employee. And so kind of me working on what I wanted to work was sort of up to what I wanted to work on. So I started to research a science fiction game I was going to do, which originally I was calling Squadron. And originally it wasn't going to be sort of first person 3D, which is what Wingcommander came out. It was going to be sort of a more tactical, top down, bigger ship combat. And I was sort of going through reading books, looking at board games, and just sort of looking for general inspiration. And I sort of decided that I wanted to create a game that was more visceral, that sort of put me sort of in the cockpit. The work that Larry Holland had done on Battlehawks 42 had sort of shown a way to do it in 3D, to deliver sort of detail in a sort of 3D ship, in this case, aircraft from 1942, fighting in the Pacific Theater, in a way that you couldn't do at that time in 3D, because 3D, straight polygon 3D, was very simple and basic back then, so I didn't feel like it had the detail I wanted to sort of render ships in. But looking at what Larry had done on Battlehawks 42, I said, well, I can sort of take this. I'd had a routine I'd written for rotating, to basically scaling and rotating sprites very quickly and fast. And so combining that, if you rendered out all these different views of a ship, that you could take these sprites that were essentially much more complicated, compared to what we use now, nothing. But back then, you could only render offline, and I think we used one of the very first sort of Amiga 3D programs, which I think eventually came out of the toaster and all that sort of stuff, which I guess sort of became Lightwave. But so we built these ships in 3D and pre-rendered out the different views, and it sort of afforded to have this sort of higher level of detail that at the time you didn't really see in 3D, and then put the cockpit there, and it was it was a big thing for me to sort of have the point of view and see your hand on the joystick and your knees and the cockpit around you, and see damage when the ship's getting damaged and stuff like that. But no one at Origin was interested at all. But I sort of worked on this myself as sort of a skunk project, and sort of begged, borrowed, and stole some time from people like Dennis Lee Bay to help do some graphics. And like things like if you see the running in Wingcommander, that's basically it's shooting video. I think that was Paul Isaac, who was the programmer that worked with me back on Times of Law, and then eventually came across to help work on Wingcommander, and running on a treadmill and filmed, and then we sort of rotoscoped that into the graphics. And I can't remember, I think it may have been my hands and legs in the joystick in the cockpit, I can't remember which we did there, but I basically put a prototype together where it was you could be in the cockpit flying around, showing how the 3D, how it would look and feel, shooting some ships and stuff. And then I showed that to Robert, and I showed it to Fred Schmidt, and I showed it to Martin Davis to sort of show what I was working on. And they got very excited by that, because it was very different than what Origin had done before. And so that was kind of the point that I started to get some traction for the game, and then it sort of went from there. But I mean, it was in the early stages, it was all about Ultima this and Savage Empire that, and then when Wingcommander became a hit, then it sort of became sort of the second Origin franchise. But at the beginning, it was mostly because I had this idea and I wanted to sort of prove it out, and I sort of put together a sort of proof of concept, which is I think a way that I work. I like to sort of see how it all comes together and play with it visually, rather than just sort of pitch an overall design that's a bunch of words. I want to put out something on a screen so you can sort of get a feel of the emotional reaction, which was kind of the same thing I did for the Star Citizen crowdfunding campaign, where I sort of put this prototype together to show this is what the spaceships could look like, and this is what the scale could feel and look like, using all these tools that we're going to use now. And actually, if you go back to the 2012 presentation, it looks pretty primitive to what we've got now. But back then, it was, I think, it was pretty impressive. So, but that's kind of how Wingcommander sort of came to be inside Origin.
So how you mentioned Star Citizen? How does working on Star Citizen differ from Wingcommander back then?
Well, there's a different scale in the project. I mean, obviously Star Citizen is spread between multiple locations. So we're here in Los Angeles, we're in Austin, we're in Manchester, we're in Frankfurt, and then we've got people in partners that are working in other areas like Montreal, or Ilphonics finishing up the FPS in Denver. And so we're pretty spread, and we have well over 200 people, actually more like 300 if you include contractors, working on the project. And back when I was doing Wingcommander, we're in one location. We didn't have a network. Internet didn't exist back then. So if people went between sharing some code, they would take a floppy drive and walk it to someone else's machine, which was called SneakerNet back then, is how it was phrased. And the team was pretty small. So the first year of Wingcommander development was pretty much just me. Paul Isaac came in at the end and sort of started adding in and helping out a bit. Dennis Lee Bay did most of the graphics back in the very early period, and he'd done a bunch of stuff on Times of Law and was working on Richard's stuff. And then as we got further in, and it sort of got a bit more backing and enthusiasm, we sort of added up, more people got thrown onto it. But in the early days, it was like Glenn Johnson and Daniel Bourbonnais, if I pronounce it right. And then the team sort of grew for the last 6 months to try and get it out for the all-important Christmas season. So we went to show it at CES in 1990, and CES is, I think back then it was in June, and we sort of, we had this big monitor and some speakers, and people weren't really expecting anything from us, and we sort of played like some of the space combat and like the scramble mission with the sort of now very famous sort of Wingcommander refrain that was done by Dave Govert and the Fat Man, and it sort of drew crowds, and everyone was really quite excited by it. And so when we went back, we're like, shit, we gotta get this thing out for Christmas. And it's not like now where you can sort of have it. Oh, we'll release it on December 19th, and everyone can download it then. I mean, you had to get it manufactured, put into boxes, shipped out to the store shelves. So we had to have it wrapped up for September. In fact, may have even had to go sort of master before that, if I remember correctly. I think it was at the very beginning of September, the end of August. So we sort of just threw a bunch more. So more resources were sort of thrown in So there's a fair number of people that came off Richard's game for a period of time to help out. So I know Herman Miller was one of his long-term programmers. In fact, when I first came to Origin, he was the only programmer besides Richard working on Ultima, and he sort of did the sound system. John Miles, who I work with a lot, helped out on the graphics side, and we had people like Ken Demarest came in to do the AI, which Aaron was over from. Going to university in England, and Aaron did the scripting. We had Jeff George, who did sort of paper design, and and actually it's pretty interesting in Wingcommander. We didn't really balance anything. It was all sort of designed out on paper, and the missions that everyone played were the missions that were designed out on paper from the beginning. So we didn't even adjust any. Like I cannot recall of an incident of us adjusting the numbers that we came up with the ships or the mission design. And we had a few other people help out, like Steve Mucko towards the end, and Steve Beeman. So I think I've got pretty much everybody. And if I haven't, I apologize. I mean, there's a bunch of people in QA, and we had various sort of sound and other stuff that was happening. So Mark Shafkin, I think, did our sound effects and stuff like that. But anyway, it was a much smaller group than we would have now. So you do have the advantage of not having the communication issues or the complexity of the scale issues. Game was obviously much simpler in terms of what you're doing. I think. I mean, it's been a long time since I looked at the code, but you sent me. I think it'd been 20 years, and you sent me like, oh, here's the. I've got a zip of all the Wingcommander code, and you sort of look at it and go, oh, okay, look how small this is. Back in C. There's just a difference in scale. I mean, now there's just a lot more complexity in simulation. There's a lot more communication you have to do. I mean, you can just do a lot more. So, I mean, that part's exciting. I think I can make a much more interesting and living universe with what we're doing with Star Citizen. I'm not sure I miss the old days. It certainly was quicker to make games back then because Wingcommander 1 was 18 months start to finish. Which it would be nice to do something in 18 months in today's world.
All right, so I'm going to be streaming Wingcommander on Saturday. Kurosawa 2, how do I save that R'Lari?
Well, the way I used to do it when I did my playthroughs was I would just do a lot of taunting. So the key is to I think it's the Grathas, right? To get them off the R'Lari as quickly as possible because the R'Lari doesn't have a lot of hit points. I can't remember if we sort of gimped it, like already started it damaged, or it just didn't have that many hit points because we made obviously the Kilrathi ships a bit weaker than the human ships. But yeah, that's kind of the key. Or at least it was for me. I also think depending on which wingman you select, that would potentially help. But yeah, I used to afterburner in, taunt as quickly as I possibly could to get people onto me, and then I would fight them, and then if you do it quick enough, you manage to get it. But that was definitely the hardest mission in the whole game.
Do you have a favorite wingman?
My favorite wingman, I don't know, it sort of probably would be Maniac. It's he certainly is, I think, the wingman that people remember the most. If it wouldn't be Maniac, it would probably be Hunter or Paladin. So those would be the two, the three. But I would say it would be Maniac, just because he was the strongest personality, and he's definitely, that was actually one of the times that when the game first came out, and back then you didn't have internet, but you could go on bulletin boards and read what people were saying, and people were discussing the wingmen, the wingwomen, wingmen, the wing people, wingmates, as real people. They weren't discussing them of like, oh well, if you take so and so, then he's best for this mission or she's best for that mission. It was like, oh, this person's a complete asshole, I hate him, or I like, and so it had sort of transcended sort of the normal sort of computer game-ness of it and became more like they had personality associated, and people were in that world, and that was sort of the moment that I was like, okay, I think this is it, this sort of whatever it is coming together like that works to pull people into the world, and that's where we sort of took it from there onto Wing 2, and later on where we sort of doubled down on building the world and the characters and stuff.
Well, you certainly got me in the universe. But yeah, thank you. Any final thoughts on 25 years of Wingcommander?
I mean, to be honest with you, I would not have guessed that I'd be sitting here talking about Wingcommander 25 years on. Also, I mean, I'm always constantly sort of honored and flattered every time we go to Gamescom, or we're going to go to CitizenCon. I run into all the people that have supported Star Citizen, so thank you very, very much for supporting Star Citizen. But the amount of people that come up and say, oh, I played Wingcommander when I was 12 or 14, and it was my first gaming experience, and I fell in love with it, or it made me want to go off and be a computer programmer, maybe want to be a pilot, or do all these things. Where for me, my version of that was I saw Star Wars, right? So I didn't think anything I would do that would have any impact on anyone else. So just to actually realize that all these years later is actually pretty special, because it's only recently that you with the internet and sort of the ability to connect directly to, say, your community like we're doing now, that you get to interact with people that played your stuff. So the old days, it sold well, it got good reviews, but you sort of were off onto the next game and you had none of that human connection. So it's really awesome it's really nice to, anyone that does anything, if you do something and you care about it and other people play it and they get enjoyment from it, that's the best thing you can get. So that's a gift that Wingcommander gave me, and I'm always, like I said, flattered and humbled, and pretty amazed by that. So that's cool. So thank you, and thank you for the folks that have played Wingcommander all those years ago, and then wanted to see sort of the next generation space game and supported Star Citizen. So thank you all very much.
All right, well, we'll see you back in 2040 for the 50th anniversary.
Yep, there you go.
Thank you, Chris and me.
Thank you. And you know what else has ships? Ship shape. Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Ship Shape. This week we're going to be covering the Caterpillar. Specifically, we're going to be talking about some of the challenges that having an asymmetrical ship like this poses to the development team, and also some of the modules that we're currently working on. Right now we're slated to kick off modeling of the ship early next year, and so we'll show you what we have right now, which is of course very work in progress still. The Caterpillar is an infamously asymmetrical ship. While this is pretty cool for the ship itself, it can pose a lot of challenges to the development team if not approached in the correct way. We've had a lot of conversations, even recent ones, about the best way to set this up on our side. Now we found a creative way to approach this by having the cab of the ship, the command module, be symmetrical to itself and the hull symmetrical to itself, even though the cab is up on one side. This gives the Caterpillar its signature asymmetry, but it makes things a lot easier for us when we're balancing out these two parts of the ship. It makes it a lot easier for us to place thrusters. It's going to make flight balance feel a lot better for players. So in the end, it makes it not only a lot easier for us to implement in the game, but it's going to feel a lot better for you guys. So one of the cool things about the Caterpillar is that the command module can actually detach from the hull of the ship. It's essentially like two ships in one, and so we are building them as essentially two different ships. This is going to help us when it's attached because, as I mentioned before, it helps us balance-wise because all of the balance controls will, of course, be coming from the command module when it's attached. Since this is going to be such an important part of the ship as a whole, we're spending a lot of time right now working on polishing the cab. Again, making it asymmetrical so it feels better for you guys, but also the layout and how the balance is going to work. One of our designers, Randy Vasquez, is currently working on the ship. You might remember some of his work before from when he talked about the Starliner and helped me do a ship shape episode on that. In talking to him, he told me what some of the biggest challenges were for him at this early stage in the process. And one of them is making sure that all of the people and components that need to can fit on the cab of the ship. Again, since it detaches, we need to make sure that a lot of the pieces that modify a ship can attach not just anywhere, but to the command module, so that when it detaches, they're still helping you out. On the tech side, we're also looking at some creative ways to approach the fact that the cab is going to have different functionality when it's attached and when it's not.
For example, when it's attached to the hull of the ship, it's going to be able to interact with every piece of it. But of course, when it's detached and when it's flying off somewhere else, it's not going to be able to do all of those things. Last but definitely not least, we have some work in progress images of some of the modules we're working on for the Caterpillar. You'll see the medical module. This has some beds and some medical equipment. You'll see the personnel module, which has a living area with tables. You'll also see the workshop module, which has chop shop machinery. The final module we've got here to show you guys is a cargo module. It's a little further along, you can see, concept art-wise. You can also see in this one how modules are going to attach into the rest of the ship. Finally, we have a screenshot of what Randy's screen looks like when he's working on all of this. As you can see, with all of the different modules we're working on, it can get pretty messy. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you for joining me this week on Ship Shape. Back to you, Ben and Sandy.
That's about it for Around the Verse this week, but there's more Star Citizen to come.
There is. The Star Marine status update will be live tomorrow. Check out the comm link for the update.
Those are always fun. We're in the process of closing down Star Marine. We're going to have something to you soon. In fact, we are getting ready as we speak for a company-wide playtest. Hopefully that's going to go off tomorrow, and we will let you know the results next week.
Pilots, man your planes. Our own Ben Lesnick will be hosting a Wingcommander live stream Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific.
Yes, I'm going to play through the entire original Wingcommander from start to finish. Watch me make a fool of myself in that manner. I'll have historical commentary. We're going to have some special guests stopping by, and we're going to raise a little money for Extra Life. It should be a good time.
And where is that happening?
Well, that's happening right here at Cloud Imperium Games in sunny Santa Monica, California.
All right, very cool.
The Endeavour is here. We are getting ready to kick off the long-awaited Endeavour sale, and you can expect details on the ship and its various scientific modules very soon.
And it's 200 meters long.
It is. This is a big ship. This is up in the original Idris size range. It's a biggin.
Oh my God.
Cut.
Wow.
Cut. That's it for Around the Verse forever. We're never making this show again.
It's a beep. All right, Ben, who does this week's MVP go to?
Why, I will give you this lovely envelope so you can tell us.
All right, drum roll, please. Surface, congratulations.
Surface had a fantastic hub post this week that was all about the scale of Star Citizen ships compared to actual objects and cars and so on. He created all these cool photoshops. It's like the M50 next to a race car, the Avenger next to a beaching whale. They're great pictures. Here, check some of them out.
I like it, and we can't leave you without an art sneak peek.
Here it is. Be sure to tune into Reverse the Verse tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific on Twitch. We'll be answering all your questions about that sneak peek, Star Citizen in general, and our exciting, exciting lives.
Thank you to all of our subscribers for making this show possible. As always, we will see you next week on Around the Verse.
Around the Verse. Everybody dance. Make show end now.